Hello, welcome to the Dojo, a search marketing podcast by Exposure Ninja. This is episode 3 of our marketing strategies for 2026 series. We're going to be talking about how to create a profitable digital marketing strategy for 2026. I'm joined by Charlie Marchant, our CEO, as well as Tim Cameron Kitchen, Exposure Ninja's founder. Charlie, let's start with you. Where do we start with creating a digital marketing strategy?
With the fundamentals, or at least I hope that's where everyone's going to start. And when I say fundamentals, I mean things like thinking about your current pipeline and where the leads or the customers that you have already are actually coming from. And most businesses hopefully have something in place to get a bit of an idea of where their customers are coming from. So that could be as simple as asking where they heard about you. It might be a form field that you have. It might be that your sales team asked them specifically so that you can figure out, okay, I'm getting this many leads from this channel, getting this many leads roughly from this. It's never going to be 100% accurate because leads will often just tell you the thing that they most remember. And sometimes actually a conversation with the sales team pulls out a little bit more information. A little bit of a bonus tip, actually, I've heard a lot of businesses, us included, have been adding ChatGPT or AI into their how did you hear about us field and starting to see more and more of those coming through, particularly if you have like a catch-all that's like other and you see something coming up a couple of times, sometimes putting it in the fields mean you might actually start to see it a bit more. So I would say start with the current pipeline, start with the lead sources, and then go into how much did it actually cost you to get those leads, or ideally customers, so that you can actually see which of these leads convert to be profitable customers for us. And is there anything in here that is just a big drain? And I mean drain on the marketing resource, if you're spending time attracting the wrong kind of customer, drain on the sales team's time, which if there's a drain on the sales team time, you're going to hear about it pretty quickly, most probably from most sales teams. And drain in terms of if you do take in the wrong sorts of customers or clients to your business, particularly if you're service based or if you're B2B and you find those accounts aren't really profitable, then thinking about how you shift away from those.
I think
Where do you stand on that, Tim?
Yeah, I think this is really important, and there's a big piece of work for a lot of businesses to actually figure out the answers to the questions that Charlie's asking there. Because a lot of businesses, if there's a sales team, they're just used to getting leads from various different sources. Some might pop into an email inbox, some might just ring up the phone and they get passed through, some might come in through website forms. And it's not a trivial task to figure out what the hell is going on here, where are all these leads coming from, and then what's the close rate. And it's a really important piece of work. I filmed a video recently for our YouTube about Elite Renewables, the renewables company that we bought as the group. And it's a similar dynamic there. Lots of leads from different sources over the summer. Some of the manufacturers that Elite works with were sending dozens and dozens of leads a week, sometimes as many as 50 leads in a single week. And the website that Exposure Ninja built is generating about 25 leads a week. So on the surface, you go, manufacturer's great. But when we looked at the data, the close rate on those was super low because they were really low quality. Whereas the leads from the website were really high quality and the close rate was much stronger. So shaping the digital marketing strategy there needs to come from a really good understanding of not just how many leads are coming from each area, but what's the quality, what's the close rate. Talking to the sales team is a really good step here, even if you don't have full data, because the sales team, if they're good, the sales team will know the relative quality of each different lead source because they're talking to them all day and because their earnings depend on it. And if there's one thing that you can guarantee sales team are switched on to, it's where their earnings are coming from.
Yeah, I called it fundamentals, but it's definitely not easy. And I think one of the hardest parts of this is, sorry to be boring, but data hygiene, like actually having a functioning CRM that works. So for a lot of businesses, us included, we use HubSpot and we're a HubSpot partner. So we actually set up those CRM setups so you can see where your leads are coming from. But actually having a good CRM is firstly important. The second thing is you can have a great tool, but if no one puts any data into it or the data's all incorrect, it's totally a waste of money even paying for that tool to begin with. And I think one of the hardest things is probably getting the sales team who just want to be on the phone, closing, earning their commission, because that is their natural place, that's where they love to be, actually inputting important data into it, particularly if you have leads not just coming direct through a website where it's super easy to then say, okay, this is where those leads are sourced from. If they come to you because they've come in on email through referral, if they come to you via LinkedIn message or something totally different, then whoever they come to actually has to put them into the CRM system and mark where they came from as well. Otherwise, you're just going to have this like crazy amount of unknown data everywhere.
And that conversation is from the marketing team going to the sales team saying, I really want to help you. We really want to help you generate as many high quality sales as possible. I want to feed you the best leads. I don't want to waste your time with trash. So here's what you need to do to give me that data. If you give me that data, if you fill in these CRM fields that we've built for you, that means we can go and get more of them. If you don't fill it in, we've got no idea. So you might spend half your day sifting through rubbish. But let's work together here to make sure that we're bringing in as much as possible.
It seems to me that there's a, intentional or not, an understanding that digital marketing is paired with performance. Like you both come and immediately discuss like lead, like pipeline, like lead sources and where they're coming from, and understanding you're getting the right kind of customer. Should a digital marketing strategy be set to just be about performance and getting lead generation? Or do you think it's a combination of brand and performance, or actually maybe just brand alone?
I mean, the title of this podcast was Profitable Digital Marketing. So trying to take it actually back to the profit and not to the fluff. I do think that a digital marketing strategy has to have multiple metrics. If the goal of the business, which for the majority it is profit, then it has to be tied back to what the senior stakeholders in the business actually care about, which is the bottom line, ultimately. There are going to be other metrics that you have that are either going to be progress markers towards actually making profit or an ROI or increasing customer lifetime value, whatever it is that the business is focused on at that time. I do think there's going to be things that are difficult to measure, like brand, that come into that. But ultimately, that is the marketing manager's job, the CMO's job, the marketing VP's job to decide how much resource goes into each area to get that end result.
Yeah, right. No one ever got fired for choosing IBM, and no marketing manager or CMO ever got fired for generating massive ROI on their marketing. I think we're Exposure Ninja. We've got a DNA of high ROI because we started off building websites for people where if you didn't generate them 5 leads this week, you were dead by the end of the week. So that's sort of our DNA, and that's where we're looking at things from. But at the same time, I think a lot of people, what they call brand marketing is just, they don't want to be held accountable. They don't want the marketing to be held accountable or trackable, and therefore they call it brand. I don't see that there's any reason that the type of direct response marketing that's designed to generate an ROI can't also build brand. If you look at the D2C businesses that blew up during sort of COVID, and then sort of blew up after COVID, but they built huge brands through direct response ads on Facebook. And, it's the same with, whether it's video or whether it's content on your website, it can be really focused at driving return, and it can build a great brand for you. It doesn't just have to be, fluffy, put your name on a blimp and fly it over a stadium. That's not the only way to build brand. You can also build a brand by generating a lead, having a great connection with someone, signing them up for something which gives them an educational walkthrough of how to buy or how to, whatever. Like, I don't think it has to be one or the other.
You mentioned before, like the Exposure Ninja that we have been for a long period is, helping smaller businesses, and the kind of business we help today are more towards like the mid-market and enterprise. Is the marketing delivery, the digital marketing that we do today, especially when it comes down to being profitable and performance focused, is it very much different? Are the challenges different today than they were back then? Let's say if you're working with, a 25 billion turnover business is surely different than a 25,000 a month revenue business.
Yeah, I mean, I would defer to Charlie for her sort of more day-to-day experience of this, but from my perspective, absolutely it's different. The fundamentals are still the same, right? Getting people onto a website and making them do something. That's the same challenge, whether it's Bob the plumber or like Amazon, you still want people to see your website and go through pages and click a button which transfers money from their account to the business's account. Fundamentally, that's the name of the game. But there are much more challenges in there. The larger the company, obviously, the more there's going through layers of people and working out content calendars and stuff. You can't just go and stick up something on a website and just, there we go, it's done. It has to, there's a bit of a process. So I think there's like an implementation difference, but fundamentally the core things that we're trying to do are basically the same. Charlie?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say at the end of small businesses or more like small and medium enterprises, you also have a bit more of a scrappy time because you are much more day to day in the business's cash flow at that kind of business size, where you actually need to see a consistent pipeline and you need to be focused much more heavily on performance marketing channels that are actually going to deliver for you. Often, particularly with the small businesses or anything that's newer to market, you need money coming through quickly. You don't have 6 months, 12 months to test strategies. Whereas I think when you're at the enterprise and larger level, you are then in a situation where you have so many more stakeholders. Usually you have your content team, then you have your corporate communications team, your brand team who don't want anything sounding off brand going out. Then you have like legal and regulatory who don't want you crossing any lines accidentally with anything you put out. Then you also have to think about the senior stakeholders in the business as well. So getting a project across the line is much more complex. The great thing about being at that smaller end is you have agility on your side. You usually only have one layer of sign off to get marketing done. You can change something. If it doesn't work, you can change it back really quickly. If it does work, great, you double down. You can be super fast. At that large and enterprise level, speed is generally not on your side. And if you are one of those enterprises where speed is on your side and you've managed to like not have too much corporate red tape, you are in a fantastic position. But in general, you're going to, because the business is already stable, because the business is profitable, it's got a set marketing playbook that it uses most of the time. It knows where its customers come from. In most of those cases, actually, when you're looking at your marketing strategy and thinking about what you want to shift or change, more likely you have to do something like a proof of concept project. You actually have to go through a slower process of getting buy-in with senior stakeholders. But like Tim said, ultimately, you are tying that back to how is this going to be profitable or add value to the business, even though the person's role that it is directly, whether that's marketing VP, CMO, or whether that's SEO manager, marketing manager, various kinds of digital growth manager roles that would exist in large and enterprise businesses, the KPIs are sometimes slightly different. The KPIs for those specific roles might be looking at how do we get organic traffic for this certain division or product or service, or it might be looking at something like how do we change our positioning in the market so that we can go after a certain kind of customer? How do we change the sentiment about how people think of us, how they think about us in relation to the climate, or how they think about us in relation to ethics, or all of those sorts of areas. So often I think those stakeholders have their immediate KPI, but they ultimately need to get buy-in from senior stakeholders and tie it back to what matters to the business.
And I can give an example of this. One of our clients, a massive global brand, they came to us looking for help in various areas, but what they didn't say is, we want you to make us loads of money. Exposure Ninja, our DNA is, well, we're just going to do those things, but we're going to try and make you loads of money in the process. The content section of their website hadn't really been designed for commerce, really. But with the stuff that we're able to do for them, we managed to increase the revenue from the content section of their website 450%. That's a huge result. That's like a small business kind of percentage increase, but for a massive global brand. But it's just doing, the basics. And even with large brands, there are often things where, if you can get those basics done, there are gaps in there that you can make really big impacts on revenue. And that's what the ninjas, we'll celebrate that. We'll love that. We'll enter you in tons of awards. even if our contact in the business is like, yes, we have a good, well-defined content strategy now, we're like, yeah, but it's making you loads of money. Yes, because we know that if there's a, recession or there's some challenges or whatever, that marketing piece, if it's making loads of money, it's not going to get cancelled. So I think ultimately in business, money always wins. And the same is true for marketing.
I do kind of like the agility that working with an agency does bring, because you can very quickly just test out an idea with them and see if it works or not. And in your case there, where we have an idea for like how to turn content into it, help the content to reach some other goals and smash some other goals when it comes to organic traffic generation and ranking. But to be able to kind of add the profitability in there of like how we turn this into money is super valuable. But I wonder, like, what can the people who are responsible for this, the marketing leaders, what can they do to encourage the agencies to try and build them new business, to try and find them more pipeline? What are the kind of initial things you would expect them to come forward with and start to suggest?
I would say this comes down to effectively communicating the challenges in the business to the agency. Sometimes I think there's a tendency to want to tell like the agency what to do rather than to tell them what the actual challenge is. And we see that quite a lot in RFPs. So requests for proposals is what large and enterprise businesses tend to put into agencies to give them a brief about what they want. But often that brief doesn't lead with just what the challenge is to the business that they're trying to solve. So usually they've gone through what I would call like a part diagnosis of the problem, and they think that they've got an idea of the solution, but then sometimes that brief also looks like they're trying to tell the agency the solution to the problem that they have without clearly communicating the problem. Or actually, ideally, they would just come and have a conversation to be like, these are the challenges the business is going through. Here are a couple of things I think might work. Can we have a conversation to see what you think? And actually that information gathering stage where perhaps you brainstorm with a couple of different agencies early in the process to understand the direction they might want to go sometimes gets missed, and it goes straight to, here's the brief, we just need an agency to pitch for it. So I would say actually having just a conversation about what the challenge is, what you're actually trying to achieve. And generally, I would say what you're trying to achieve is both the KPI that you as the marketing manager, you as the CMO, you as the person who is responsible for deciding on the agency actually has to hit. Because ultimately, the agency wants their marketing contact in the business to hit their goals and KPIs as well. Yeah. But then why has your senior set that as your KPI? What is their goal that they're trying to reach? Because that's usually the level that it starts being tied back to either revenue or profit, increasing customer lifetime value, something that directly impacts the bottom line.
I think there's a there's a counterintuitive piece here as well about choosing an agency that doesn't just do one thing. If you go to an agency that just does VR experiences at exhibitions, and you say we need to increase revenue, we need to increase profitability of this product line, guess what the answer is? Right, the answer is whatever your problem, the answer is more VR at more exhibitions. Whereas if you go to an agency that has a broader perspective, they're going to bring different tools, and they're going to be able to say, well, actually, you came to us looking for VR at exhibitions, but actually the answer is you just need to improve the ROI of your Google ads over here. So I think if you go to just a hammer, then guess what? You're going to look like a nail, and you need to know where the incentive of the agency is before you can judge the quality of the information that they're giving you as well.
I feel like if I'm responsible for the digital marketing strategy, and I am consulting with agencies and they're all telling me, they're learning about me and telling me the right things, I don't necessarily know where to go next. I don't know how to pick the most profitable thing. If I do have that background information, if I know what's been good for us lead source wise, I know what's turning into good profitable new clients or completed baskets or whatever it is. How can I go past that point of making a better educated decision of, right, this is the best channel for me, or an association channel and agency for me? Is there something else I should be considering?
Yeah, just sign up for Exposure Ninja, right? But what Charlie said earlier was we often find that we're doing test projects for people now. And I think that's probably the way to go, right? If you've got a range of different options, you've got your VR at your exhibitions, you've got your PPC, you've got your search, you're like, all of these seem pretty good. Well, let's just run some test projects and let's figure out which of them we enjoy working with, makes the most sense, which generates the best results. And then you'll know, like, what you don't necessarily want to commit to is like, well, we're going to sign up for a 10-year contract with this one, and hopefully we chose the right number, right? I think that's why we notice that we're being brought on for a lot of test projects.
I would also say look beyond the surface level of the agency as well. If you have an idea of the channel that you're going for, or at least the challenge or problem that you want to be solved, which every marketing manager, CMO will know if they're speaking to agencies, don't just look at the flashy website or the logos on the case studies. Actually look at the impact and results that were achieved by that agency for similar sorts of challenges. And it doesn't have to be, like your direct competitor went with this agency and achieved this result. It can actually just be something in a slightly different vertical where the challenge of that business was similar. It achieved a great result. Great. What you don't want to do is just see massive brand names on logos without actually any data or case studies behind it. Or ask the sales team, because there's often NDAs in place with an agency. They might not be able to tell you exactly who everyone is, but if they can confidently tell you the type of work that the agency has done before and the results that they get, great. And I would say the same thing with pitch decks. If you are a business that has to go to tender and look at multiple different agencies, you're going to get multiple different pitch decks. Make sure you're clear on what is actually going to be implemented by the agency in order to move towards the kind of result that you actually want, or the challenge resolution that you actually need. Because sometimes you might just be looking at a pretty pitch deck, which is great. Love a pretty pitch deck, not slating it at all. But you do actually want to know what you're going to get out the back of that once you part with your investment with that agency. And I think the third bit that is maybe sometimes underestimated is actually having a good rapport and relationship with the agency that you're going to go with, because it's not going to be a case in the majority of times that you just send the work and then never look at what's actually happening. You're probably going to be speaking to that agency at least bi-weekly, weekly if it's a very big project, or at multiple points without it. And you want to trust the people who are working on that piece of work for you. And as humans, we know whether we feel like we can trust someone probably within 5 minutes of actually meeting and listening to them. So if you have a gut sense the other way about something, just listen to that as well.
I imagine there are going to be some people who are in a position where choosing agency, changing agency is just a no-go situation, where they're potentially locked in. They don't have the available, the option to go into tender. They're stuck with their agency for another 6 months, 9 months, and they're aware that 2026 is coming pretty quickly. They need to figure out how they're going to navigate it. Would you say that they should focus on something short term that will hopefully compound? Like, I'm going to just focus on making sure that our blog converts people into our mailing automation more frequently. We're going to focus on just that, and that's going to be a growth driver for the rest of the profitability across all of the different channels and stuff. It's just going to work on that. Or should I actually look more broadly and think, do you know what, I should try and tweak a little bit of everything? Do I go all in on one or spread myself out?
I personally think this comes down to focusing on the highest value areas. In reality, you can't do everything. You might want to tweak a little bit of everything, but if you actually try and do that, you're going to find yourself burning out and working ridiculous hours, and it's probably not the most effective use of your time as a CMO or a marketing manager, anyone in that kind of role. So I would double down on winning marketing channels firstly, and put your focus in there. If you've got an agency, like you mentioned here, Dale, that aren't performing, or you feel like you're locked in, I would actually just have a conversation with them. Just ask to speak to your account manager or someone more senior and figure out what they can do with the time that they have in the contract, or if there's any way of you managing that contract differently, because agencies don't want clients locked in who are unhappy or feel like the work isn't going in the right direction. Agencies also have to think about their performance, and they want successful clients on their books, because we also want successful case studies on our books as well. So sometimes just having that conversation to find a solution is the best thing to do. And it's going to be an awkward and uncomfortable conversation, most probably, but it'll be well worth it for the business. The thing not to do, I would definitely just not just sit on your hands and be like, oh God, I'm locked in for 9 months. There's nothing I can do. Oh, the profitability is going downhill. I'm going to get fired. Like, don't be that person.
Yeah, especially not right now with everything that's going on and all the change that's happening with AI as well. That is not the time.
No.
Well, on that point, is that with all the changes with AI and AI search and so on, is that impacting profitability and how you might think about dedicating your time and your strategy for 2026 as well?
Yeah, 100%. I think for the majority of businesses, AI search is going to be a big part of their marketing strategy going forward. And I think we're at this stage now where large companies, and I'm talking particularly Fortune 500, FTSE 500 companies, are starting to get aggressive with AI search, because at that level, if you're operating in that sort of top 250 to 500, you have to fight tooth and nail to maintain your position there. And so you want the first mover advantage. You actually want to be ahead of the curve, ahead of your competitors, and thinking about it. And we're already working with companies in the FTSE 250, in the German DAX top 30 on their AI search, because they are the kinds of businesses that realize they need to start this work now. I think there's going to be a lot more businesses who are mid-market, large size businesses who are sort of only just realizing now that they need to start working on it, and perhaps haven't even thought about how much of a growth channel it will be for them. So I would say 2026 is going to be the year that this is coming into almost everyone's marketing strategy.
Yeah, there is a bit of a sort of a changing of the guard, isn't there? Whilst having a really well developed SEO and sort of traditional search visibility definitely helps you in the new era of AI search, it's not enough on its own. And therefore that sort of changeover or the transition, however fast or gradual it is, means that there are going to be winners and losers, and the losers will be the ones who haven't sort of pivoted or added that AI search component to their strategy. They've left it a bit long, or they've seen someone on LinkedIn who said AI search optimization is just SEO. So like, great, we'll just keep doing what we're doing then. And they're going to be the ones that are starting to be left behind. There'll be new brands that come up that do really well from all of this. Some of the companies that we're working with are using this. They're treating this as an opportunity to let's get some market share. Let's be on the front foot here. We can see the trend. We can see where the pattern's going. No one's getting more conversions from ChatGPT than Google right now. But is that going to happen at some point? Possibly. And it's not a bet that you'd want to make against that happening. So I think this is a real moment where we have to decide, and the end of the year is a great time to do it. Are we all in with AI search, or are we just going to hope that this goes away?
I think some people are going to be curious and to test out AI search optimization. I would certainly encourage them, as I imagine all of us would. But there are going to be many people out there who are looking for some security and dependency on some channels that are going to bring some immediate term profitability, but also some long-term expected growth too. If you were to create a profitable digital marketing strategy right now that is dependable, which channels do you think you would focus on if you had to pick just 2 or 3?
I'm an 80-20 kind of person. So 80% on your winners, and I would double down on them. And for most businesses, the winners probably are either organic, your SEO, or their Google ads, some kind of paid ads. That might vary. Other things might come in there. Account-based marketing might come in there, for example. Double down on those. 20%, that's where you want to identify what you think the growth channels for your business could be. And if you are tracking your AI search traffic and conversions, to use that example, and you're seeing that increase over time, even though it's probably the teeniest tiny percent in comparison to what organic or paid ads is doing for your business performance, if you're seeing that grow, that's probably going to be a growth channel for you. There will be some businesses where it potentially isn't. But if we think about 10 years ago, no one was using TikTok for their marketing. And that was the time at which anyone who was marketing towards Gen Z was like, hang on a second, we need to get onto here and we need to do it now. it doesn't mean every business does that. It doesn't mean that's the growth channel for every business. Anyone marketing to boomers didn't spend their time getting on TikTok, or at least I hope they didn't, because they probably found that 20% experimental budget was wasted if they did. But that is what you need to decide. What is the potential next growth channel for my business? And then you need to analyze, are there early signs that it might be this? Does this definitely make sense based on what I know about my customer personas or my customers? And just call a couple of your customers to get a bit of an understanding of what they do, what their search habits look like, what kind of marketing they interact with. I think you'll find most of the time customers are happy to tell you, particularly if they have been with your business or care about your brand for a long time.
Yeah, I really like that 80-20 framing. I've not sort of thought about it in that way, but I think actually that's a pretty good model to look through. I think what we've noticed over the course of doing all of the analysis of different brands that we've done over the years is that the ones that grow most profitably with digital, there is always a primary traffic channel, which is some form of organic, whether it's organic search, whether it's organic social, or something else. And then there is a really well-developed paid strategy as well. The paid strategy is great for rapid scale, for testing, and for filling in any sort of gaps in organic visibility. But fundamentally, if you're relying purely on paid traffic, the cost per acquisition is typically very high, and much higher than competitors who have a bigger organic presence, because you're having to pay for every visit or every conversion, whereas they aren't. So I would always build a marketing strategy that had a big focus on organic, because organic isn't free. You just have to work to get it. And you had some form of supplementary sort of paid piece, which is your security in a time of change, like we're about to go through, like we are going through, really. If you've got a strong paid campaign, you know that you can always dial it up as you need. And that doesn't necessarily just mean one channel. It could be multiple channels. But I think you need chops in both areas if you're really going to grow as quickly as you can. That's something that we consistently see. And I think actually I know we mentioned D2C brands and what happened in the boom days of COVID, and then it sort of dropped away, and a lot of these DTC brands ultimately failed. And that was because they grew purely from paid. There was like a badge of honor about just dumping as much as you could into Facebook every week. And the hope was that, yeah, but we're selling mattresses. Yeah, but you know, your mattress customer is going to buy once every 7 years. So what's going to happen once you've picked up all that latent demand? Then there's going to be nothing for you. So I think if they had a lower cost per acquisition model, they would have been absolutely fine. So I think there's lessons there, and I'd always match paid and organic somehow.
I think I would always have 2 to 3 main marketing channels as the goal, though, that actually generate some kind of ROI for you. Because if you have all your eggs in one basket, it just takes one more aggressive competitor to get a bit of investment. Suddenly your CPCs go up wildly on Google. It becomes completely unsustainable for your business to invest in. You're not getting the same number of customers you were. If that was your only channel, that's a scary place to be. So I think you always want to be thinking about that second or third channel that is important in your marketing mix. The other thing that we haven't really touched on, which is huge, is we've mostly thought about how we get new business with our profitable marketing strategies here. But quite a substantial amount of the time, it's actually the repeat business and the lifetime value of your current customers that have a major impact when it comes to your bottom line, your profitability. And so when you're thinking about marketing, not only thinking about how do we get new customers in, but actually how do we retain our existing customers, and how do we make life amazing for them? How do we upsell and cross sell to them? But not only thinking as the business, like how do we make more money from these customers, but how do we actually improve the experience and the growth for those businesses? What do they actually need that we can offer them? And a lot of the time that can be things like content that actually adds value, because they want to understand what's going on in the market, the area that you serve, so you can actually provide resources that are helpful, that either educate or inspire, that position you as a long-term partner as well. And I think there's a lot to be said for the role of email marketing and things like webinars, things like nurturing those customers, loyalty programs, if you are SaaS, for example, similar kinds of perks that make sure you're showing that you value the customers that you currently have.
And a
Tim,
lot
I
of
know
this
you.
stuff, yeah. A lot of this stuff is it's almost free to talk to your existing customers, but it's less sexy, isn't it? It's less fun. You'll find much fewer videos on YouTube about how to increase your average customer order by X, or how to increase your customer repurchase rate by 20%. Like, that stuff is fundamentally, it's just not as fun. Nobody wants to go back to the old people that they spoke to last week. They want to get more new people, right? And I think that's, as I know, it's like a weird human fault in our brains, but Charlie's absolutely right. The most profitable source of business is often your existing customers, or the people that didn't buy from you previously, just going back to them and running promos. And, you know, every time you email out to your list, you'll make money. You'll generate sales. That's, you know, it's almost a given. So why is there not a strategy behind that for a lot of businesses? It's always confused us inside Exposure Ninja, but then
Yeah.
it's almost universal.
That mindset is totally wild as well, because it costs you so much more to get a new customer than it does to retain a current customer. And the customer journey doesn't finish when they come in the door. Like, the customer journey continues with every interaction they have with your business. And so I think marketing should always be thinking about current and new business.
Yeah, there was an interesting case study that we work on at the moment. We're just kind of sharing between our teams about an enterprise level company we were helping with their email marketing, and the level of profitability, the greater average order value from the automation of just kind of re-engaging with people who are keen to spend money with you, whether regardless if it's a service or business, so much higher with the automation, and making sure that the profitability is a sum of all of the parts, and not just, I'm going to spend way more on paid, or I'm going to double how much content I put out for my SEO and so on. So much better to have that ecosystem that works together to drive profitability.
The bonus about that one as well was this particular enterprise company didn't have that many email automations in place. So what they were actually doing was sending out newsletter blasts or marketing emails that then someone actually had to write up every week or couple of weeks. And the resource saving on actually just getting marketing automations in place and performing well, then you only have to make a couple of tweaks every now and then, because you've got a sequence that works really well. So it's actually not only a more profitable marketing strategy, but the resource save, it actually reduces the amount of time required. It's like a double win.
Yeah, in the Exposure Ninja, the worst moment in Exposure Ninja's history was October 2014. And it got so bad, I had to set up an email marketing system and sort of take on all the sales myself. And we built automations for different pipeline stages. It took like a couple of days. We used those automations, those exact automations, to sell loads of leads over like the next 4 or 5 years, pretty much without any changes whatsoever. Like, it's such a high leverage use of time to do that type of stuff that Charlie's talking about, because you might spend a bit of time, a bit of money setting up an automation stream for leads that come in that maybe have ghosted you or you haven't heard from for 3 months. But that thing could run for 10 years if it's well designed.
Oh, wild. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And what I love on top of that is that you can kind of reuse that same audience you've created within your CRM to then do better paid search. So, for example, or paid social. You can tie the two systems together depending on which CRM you're with. If you're using HubSpot, you can connect it with most of the major ad networks. So you can do remarketing, retargeting. You can build lookalike audiences off the same kind of emails. Like, if you're in B2B, for example, you can build account-based lookalike audiences and say, these are the kind of businesses that we work with. We want to work more with them. Let's connect the two together and expand our reach that way, which I really love. Like, that's just another. It sounds fairly simple. It is relatively simple to set up to increase your profitability off what you already have.
Yeah, see, it's actually fantastically fun to market towards current customers.
It's fantastic. It's really fun to get the results, that's for sure. you know, you could see a situation, right, where you're bidding against competitors. Let's say you're doing Google ads or Facebook ads or something. Your CPCs are really high. Your cost per acquisition is pretty much break even. And you're thinking, I'm not really sure this is worthwhile. Well, your cost per initial acquisition might be break even. But if you've got a sick back end and you know that if everyone who doesn't sign up now, you get 20% of the rest of them within the next 2 or 3 months, and then you're able to resell them in another 3 months or whatever, you could see yourself running that front end at a loss, right? This is the whole self-liquidating lead gen, right? You're happy to pay for that upfront cost because you know that the machine behind it is going to be so good. You see this sort of economic model is there everywhere. If you phone up from an infomercial to buy, something, whatever, it doesn't matter what, you see a mop that's a crazy mop, they're going to say, oh yeah, but do you want the other thing? Do you want the other thing? Before, if you just keep saying no, eventually they're going to be trying to sell you like vitamins and supplements, because they know that they might be breaking even on the mops or losing money on the mops, but they're going to get you on all the back end pieces, and then they're going to email you every couple of days for the next 6 years selling you other stuff. But a lot of businesses aren't set up in this way. They're set up for the initial sale, and if that doesn't happen, all right, on to the next lead.
And you think that's applicable to service-based businesses too?
Absolutely. Possibly even more so.
Yeah. I mean, if we think about even at Exposure Ninja, the number of suppliers that we've used where they didn't actually take care of the business long term. So we, before HubSpot, used a different CRM that I'm not going to name that was so clunky. It was so clunky. And we left because they didn't actually take care of their customers. They didn't take care of updating those systems to make sure that it was evolving as the needs of their customers evolved. And that's true of pretty much anything in SaaS. The same, we used to have a much worse leave management system, which you think of software for managing leave. Literally, someone just needs to see how many annual leave days they've got left in the year. That's it. It's simple. And it doesn't work. Then yeah, the business, like we left them just a couple of months ago, the businesses do shift if their suppliers aren't actually delivering what they need. And I would say the number of times that I actually spoke to those suppliers, 0 in the 4 or 5 years that we were with them. So they probably have no idea which customers are about to leave either, because they aren't thinking about how they take care of existing customer bases. So in B2B, it's absolutely massive.
And customers' needs also sort of change over time, right? Everyone in recruitment knows this. The best recruiters will ping you every few days or every week. Just check in. You got any vacancies I can fill for? It might be a no. They might have spent some money to generate me as a lead 2 months ago, and it was a no right then. But then guess what? In 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, got a position, really can't fill. This person's been at me, or this company's been in my email inbox. Yeah, just give it a go. And then off we go. I've got a relationship with their recruiter this week that is based on exactly that dynamic. They've just kept on persisting. And there were months when I thought, why the hell is this guy continuing to phone me? Like, what is going on in his head? Can't you just take no for an answer? No, he couldn't. And guess what? Eventually it paid off. So I think you don't have to do that with like sales calls and phones. You can do that with email, just always being there, always being visible, so that when they're ready and they have that need and it's suddenly urgent, you're the one that they think of, and it costs you nothing to do that.
It's quite relatable to a recruitment agency I'm aware of based here in Edinburgh, who are doing offline events and things like that support the profitability of their digital marketing. So you may be trying to improve your digital marketing, put together a fantastic strategy for 2026. Doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't also focusing on all of the other parts, like Charlie mentioned earlier, speaking to the other relevant teams. There may be, if you're in doing some omni-channel marketing, if you're in, let's say, the beauty cosmetics, there's offline activation that works alongside your digital efforts. There may be some organic social or some organic search, which then is attached to your paid social, which then drives some account activation, which then drives some in-person activation. Like Fenty, when I was in Birmingham the other day, Fenty had like a stand out there, and they were doing like your custom setups and stuff. I don't really understand any of it, but that was helping the profitability of their other channels, because people were thinking, great, I'm going to go do this, and then going to buy some stuff, and they'll come back to their website later, or Sephora's website later, or somewhere else, and we'll get that profitability through other channels as well. But we're getting fairly into this now, and I want to get us on to actually how to create a profitable digital marketing strategy. If we're going to sit down and do it, I've got a pen and paper in front of me. What do I start with?
Lead sources first. Where are your current leads actually coming from and which ones are profitable? Customer acquisition cost, if you know it, great. Also put that, and then figure out which are your highest value segments from there that you want to target. Once you've got that, which is the basic fundamental that you actually need to decide what marketing you're doing, then which marketing channels, what's your total marketing budget, and how do you split it between those marketing channels? If that's this investment in SEO, this much on Google Ads management, and this much on ad spend, then what have you got left in the pot? What's your experimental budget? Figure out what you want to experiment with, and then decide, okay, this is going to be a project that we're going to do in 2026. This is how long we're going to run it for. That's what we're going to go after. And make sure that main budget is both for new business and for existing customers.
Tim, are you taking the same approach?
I wish I could take that consistent and logical approach. Yeah, that is exactly what the best version of me would do. Yeah.
Joe, just hearing that, it brings up one question which I see time and again at the moment, especially this year, and we'll end on this, is, are some of these channels as profitable now, and will they be as profitable next year as they have been in previous years?
I think it depends on the channel and the business and what they're actually doing with that channel. I think there's lots of changes in marketing channels over time. And I think it's not unusual as a business scales, particularly if they start pushing towards a slightly different customer segment or a new market, to decide that a channel doesn't perform as well in that market or that region as it maybe once did, or as it does for other regions and markets, particularly if you're a global business. So there is an analysis that you have to do. Then you just have to break down further between what's working and where it's working. And you do have to keep on top of the trend of what channels are my current customers actually using and coming in on, and not being afraid to shift that as the business scales as well and as time goes on, because probably how you were marketing 10 years ago as a business is not the same as how you're marketing now. I think that would be extremely rare to have a business who is just doing what they did 10 years ago and also growing throughout that decade as well. So I think there is a bit of what you did last year, what you did 3 years ago, probably isn't quite the same as what you're going to do now and what you're going to do next year.
Yeah, and I think the process that Charlie outlined, that beautiful logical process, that gives you your sort of direction of travel at the start of the year. And then you want to build in review periods. So Exposure Ninja, for our clients, we do quarterly campaign reviews, where we're not necessarily throwing everything out every quarter and starting again, but we're just looking at, okay, is the focus, is the split between different channels that we're working for our clients, is that still the optimal focus, or do we need to tweak things? And I think that sort of cadence gives you enough flexibility to adapt to changes in user behavior and changes in cost for some ad channels, and also staying current with the trends and where do we think things are going. So I think you need a bit of stability. You don't want to be just like, what should we do this week? Let's go and do that. What should we do next week? Oh, let's do that. You need a bit of flexibility. But, you know, having said that, what your marketing campaign at the start of the year and at the end of the year probably isn't going to look dramatically different unless you've made some real weird choices at the start of the year.
That's exceptional. Well, I hope this has been really useful for people who are going into planning their strategies for 2026, and this will help you to be as profitable as possible. If you are looking for more advice on how to create a profitable marketing strategy or SEO strategy or anything along those lines, head over to exposureninja.com. You'll find a lot of guidance there. You can also reach out to us and we'll be able to help you as best that we can. If you want to watch the entire series, of which this is episode 3 of our marketing strategies for 2026 series, go to exposure.ninja/strategies 2026 and you will see everything as it comes out. There will be at least 10 or 11 episodes, so buckle up. We've got you covered, don't worry, but it'll be worth every minute you watch, I promise. Thanks to the both of you for joining us, and see you all next week. Take care. Bye.